What is the most Karen thing a Karen has even done to you? Personally? When I worked at the Home Depot, a Karen told me that she didn't want any black men to install her flooring. I was in charge of arranging her order and told her that we don't select which individuals exactly will install her floor and that she'll get who she gets. She proceeds to have a fit about it. Demands white installers. Asks to speak to my manager. I'm so glad she did. Because my manager's name was Dwayne and he was a real big black dude. Turns out she didn't want to speak to the manager. Left her card in the eftpos machine at the McDonald's I was managing as a teenager. Rang me to say I needed to drive it out to her. That I ruined her night. Ruined her family's night. Owed her free food and that she'll be laying a formal complaint when I refused all of the above. She showed up 3/4 of an hour later with steam blowing out her ears asking for her card back. Last we heard from her, that I needed to leave the gym because I made her son feel like only fat people go to the gym. Blew up at me for ignoring her son, who was trying to hit on me by saying konnichiwa and calling me kawaii. I had never met him before and I am not Japanese. She called me a stuck-up racist and insinuated that I should be glad he was worldly enough to speak Asian to me. I just responded sorry. No English. They had previously heard me speaking English with my friend, I'm pretty sure, and walked away. When I worked at a bakery, Karen bought a chocolate cupcake and ate half of it. Karen then asked if she could return her half-eaten chocolate cupcake, not because she didn't like it, but because she wanted to exchange it for half of a vanilla cupcake, something less decadent. Like most bakeries, we did not sell cupcakes by the half. She became offended when I asked if she wanted to purchase a vanilla cupcake.
Doctor here. I used to work in a public night shift service, kinda like an emergency room but for non-emergencies, to keep the hospitals clear of white coats, so anything from a fever to a sore throat, to prescriptions for urgent treatments, and a Karen walks in at 3 AM asking for a prescription for hypertension drugs, which isn't unusual, as people are old people, more often than not. But she looked 55, sometimes don't notice they are running low. Anyway, the law, not a rule, not my decision. The law states that this service can only write prescriptions for potentially life-threatening conditions, drugs for a maximum of 72 hours coverage, so if you take one pill a day, I can only prescribe you a single blister. Here we don't have bottles, but blisters. And while I'm writing the prescription, Karen casually mentioned that she was insomniac, and while cleaning the medicine cabinet she realized she was down to her last full blister. My pain stops. I ask her to repeat. Full blister, yeah. So I take the prescription, tear it in half, then again. Then I throw it in the bin, explaining her the law. She gets mad, starts yelling and threatened to call the cops. Go ahead. Cops came, and she triumphantly announced that I'm refusing to treat her. I explain the situation, and they asked her if it's true that she has a full blister, and she, of course being a Karen who is always right no matter what, confirms it. The cops look at her still with a look of triumph, waiting for them to arrest me, then at me, then ask her politely to leave, as I'm in the right. She's livid. The day after, my boss called me and cracked up cause she went there during the day to talk to the manager, and my boss told her the exact same thing. Never saw her again in there. Weirdly enough, I deliver appliances for Best Buy. We had a woman call and complain that her fridge was not pre-cold old before it was delivered and that she had to wait for it to come down to temp. No one in the office was prepared for that one edit. Holy crap. Thank you whoever popped my gold cherry. You rock. When I was working retail, this one woman had a big bag of coupons. Most of them were unusable because either they were expired or they were duplicates. She berated me because the system was rejecting most of the coupons. She called me stupid amongst other names, telling me I just wasn't doing it right. Then, as a typical Karen would, she asked to speak with my manager. My manager came and asked what the problem was. The woman ranted about how incompetent I was because I didn't know how to scan a coupon. My manager looked at the coupons and the coupons were the problem, not me. My manager bitched out the customer for being disrespectful for me and told the customer to leave the store. I hated working there, but I'm so grateful that I had managers that totally didn't go by the customer is always right rule and weren't afraid to stand up for their employees. That was just one of many incidents.
I used to work at a fast food in a theme park when I was 18. Karen held up the line cause she was demanding us to assemble a food for her daughter, which we aren't allowed to do cause we go by a menu. My daughter can't have that. Well, what can you do for me? Do you want her to starve? Are one of the most irritating lines I ever encountered. Asked for my manager's personal cell phone number to complain that I, 7 months pregnant at the time, would not carry a refrigerator that she had not paid for in the cost of her room up to her second-story room. We did not have an elevator. Rather than just accept an upgrade for free because she didn't want to unpack her stuff, she refused to believe we had rooms without fridges and I was just being fat and lazy. When I refused to give her the cell phone number, she asked for corporate's number. I wrote it down on a sticky note with a smiley face. She came down later and asked to move rooms. I made her pay the difference. I used to work retail, so I have come across my fair share of Karens. They were a huge reason why I went back to school and no longer work as a cashier anyways. One day while I was manning the registers with a few other co-workers of mine, I had a massive nosebleed right as I was finishing a transaction. I grabbed a tissue and quickly excused myself to run to the restroom so I could try to get it to stop bleeding. This meant that I couldn't say goodbye to Karen and give the little spiel about how I was oh so grateful for her shopping with us anyways. After about 10 minutes, I was finally able to get my nose back under control and headed back to the registers. I saw her waiting to the side with a scowl on her face, arms crossed over her chest, the whole 9 yards. She proceeded to scold me about how rude I was for not saying goodbye. After I apologized and explained that I had an unexpected nosebleed, she told me I should have tried holding it in and that the customer comes first. My brain was literally after that.
I was a supervisor at Cost Plus World Market. A Karen comes in one night pushing a cart full of obviously used throw pillows and asks to return them. Of course she has no receipt, and instead wants us to just look her up in the system. Except she refuses to provide her information for us to try to look her up. She starts yelling at my cashier, and that's when I stepped in to tell her very politely and calmly that she either needs a receipt or needs to provide us her name and phone number. She starts screeching and screaming about how we're assholes and she'll get us fired and blah blah blah. Then she demands an apology from the president of the world. I'm certain she meant the president of World Market, but in her bleached hair fury she said the president of the world, and I barely held it together as I calmly offered her the corporate feedback number. She wouldn't take it and instead walked out of the store still yelling, and without her cart of dirty pillows she returned about 20 minutes later, quietly apologized, and took her pillows with her. We never heard from her again.
My sister-in-law is the biggest Karen I've ever met. Complains in almost every restaurant we have gone to. But this one time they were moving house and my bro asked me to help. I was staying at their place for the delivery truck that was to arrive early in the morning. We were having drinks and my bed mattress was on the living room floor. At around 1:15 I said I think I'm going to go to bed. She replied, are you kicking me out of my own living room? Not realizing she is crazy I joke, I guess I am. She said no one does that, and even though she had finished her last drink made herself 2 cups of tea. She didn't go to bed till after 2:30. She told me the next morning she stayed up to show no one tells her what to do. Told me I couldn't work on my car in my own garage at noon because she didn't want my fast looking car to influence her sons to be hooligans like you.
Working retail one afternoon and here comes Karen with a return. At first glance it's no big deal, just coming in to return a shirt. She walks up to the register, hands me the receipt to start processing. We exchange a pleasant greeting. I take the shirt out of the bag to examine it and it is beyond disgusting. There were brown sweat stains all over it, from the pits to the stomach to the shoulder. It looked like whoever wore it rolled in mud or some nonsense. I proceed to tell Karen that I cannot return the product because it had clearly been used and that only unused and resellable items could be returned. Karen threw a fit, started screaming at me and accusing me of calling her a liar and whatnot. I hold up the shirt and point to the brown pit stains and say, Karen, can't you see the stain? Oh man, did that make it worse? She continues making a huge scene and demands to see the manager. Newsflash, Karen, I am the manager and I'm not budging. After 20 or so minutes of complaining she finally leaves, saying she'll be complaining to corporate and getting me fired and blah blah blah. Fast forward a few days, a guy walks into the store, finds the first store associate he can and immediately asks for me by name. Here we go again. Anyway, My associate bring the guy over to where I'm standing and I politely greet him. The guy spends the next 10 minutes apologizing for his crazy wife Karen verbally abusing my staff and I a few days prior. Apparently, the guy went to the beach and did some type of CrossFit HI training class in the sand. Karen knows all of this, she was at the class with him. The guy ended up not liking the shirt for some reason and Karen thought she could pull a fast one on us by making a scene. Think again, Karen.
Had a Karen threaten to report me to my manager for talking with other customers I was serving.
The mother of a girl I went to school with comes into the shop I work at 5:58 p.m. We close at 6. Lights are half off. Front door is closed. Roller door is half down. And goes, "Hi, my name." I am just running up to grab a few things before I can tell her not to. She's gone into the aisles. My manager comes over and goes, "What are you doing? We have to be done by 6. He went to find her. She's already got a basket full of things going. "Where are the capsicums? Can I just grab?" Keep in mind this is a fruit shop. Half the items come off the shelves and into the cool room. My manager is literally the nicest guy ever and agrees to ring up her items as long as she pays card, as the cash is all packed into the safe. No, that's ridiculous. I only have cash. "My name, hun, can you tell him I only have cash?" So I tell her the exact same thing, that we literally can't access the cash once the safe is closed for the day. "Oh, well, can you just pay for it on your card and I'll get daughter to pay you back?" I tell her that I can't do that. She starts shouting about how unprofessional we are, that the shop is awful because half the items are gone, we were closed, and that she's never coming back. Thank God. She avoids me at school events now, and I honestly feel sorry for her daughter. The stories I hear about this cow are shocking. Icing on the cake? Her name is actually Karen. In tech support, this Karen had started the PowerPoint presentation, saved it, gave it a name, worked on it for 8 hours, closed it, and when the program said, "Do you want to save changes?" said no. So the program did what it was told and dumped them. And surprisingly, when she reopened it, it was blank. I explained that she told it not to interrupt. "No, that is not acceptable. You will fix it." "No, there is no interrupt." Go around the circle several times. She finally called the on-call support for her company and explain what was going on. Have you ever had someone roll their eyes so hard you could hear them over phone? Then conferenced Karen, who started writing before either of us could say anything with how incompetent I was, etc etc. He let her burble for a minute, then cut her off. She started squawking and he cut her off again, and again, and again until she finally shut up out of sheer surprise, I think. Screeching like a harpy didn't work? What world is this? He explained to her the same thing that I had, and she started yowling again and he chopped her off. "No, you've wasted my time on my day off, working as a favor to people with actual problems, and you've wasted tech support time. You were abusive to both of us and I'm going to report you to HR in the morning. Goodbye." Click. He hangs up. And I'm laughing my ass off as she spits and sputters like an engine that just got a good solid swig of water. Note, in this particular version of PowerPoint from decades ago, early 1990s, while it did have autosave, the autosaves were both unreliable and automatically deleted when you closed the program. Microsoft wouldn't support anything over 25 slides, and hers was over 250. Edit. Hey, thanks for this, Silver. I'm glad my pain can bring some amusement to others. D. I was standing on a crowded train and a pregnant Karen started screaming at me because she had nowhere to sit. Me, the person who was standing because there were no seats. She started screaming like it was my fault that there were no seats. At work, an X200B, I made a tiny mistake filling out a booking sheet for a company. I set the time 15 minutes later than asked by complete accident. It's a 2-second fix for anybody. To log back into the account and click on the correct time in the drop-down box. Karen sat next to me and watched me do it. An X200B, Karen logged in, took a screenshot of it, didn't fix it, then sent said screenshot to my line manager and said nothing to me. An X200B. After the lecture from my line manager about paying attention to the details, I turned to her and was like, "Why not just say, 'Hey dude, you made a mistake and just fix it?'" And X200B, she doesn't look at me, continues clicking away at her keyboard and says, "Yeah, well, if you can't do it right the first time, maybe you need somebody to tell you." And X200B, and X200B, I requested to move desks after that fun fact. Her name is Carolyn and she has Karen hair in number 2. I worked at a coffee shop where a woman came up to me to complain that her lattes weren't filled to the topI. Had seen her husband sneak sips on the walkover, but I wasn't gonna say that. So I gladly offered to remake both drinks, but she said, I don't want you to fix this. I just want you to know I'm disappointed in you. So glad I finally get to post something. Buckle up. It's story time for my grade 2 in Dothier school party. We went over to a community pool. It was designed for kids, with a lazy river, slide, etc. There were a few kids that had gotten hold of inner tubes, like the style you find at water parks all the time. I wanted one too and found one sitting on the edge of the pool. I grabbed it and started to play with it, as kids do. Some lady comes over and tells me that she had rented it, and that I couldn't play with it. Older lady takes the tube and leaves it on the edge of the pool, not even using it. Smirks back at me with this crappy face like she beat me in some major contest of wills. Me being raised to respect people that were at least technically adults. I say fine. Whatever. Weird flex to prove your adulthood by bullying a 7-year-old, but WE. Moved on with my play. Some swim instructor that had another tube noticed and let me play with one that her class was done using. I say thank you. Happy me has a tube now. Another kid in my class immediately bobs over and asks if he can use my newfound tube. I tell him no. I just got it. He shrugs and goes over and takes older lady's tube, which she's not using and has left on the edge of the pool. I keep playing for probably another 2 minutes when older lady comes splashing back. The conversation goes like this: OL, I told you to stop playing with that tube. Give it back. Me? This isn't your tube. That swim instructor gave it to me and another kid in my class took yours down the lazile, interrupting and now shouting, I don't believe you. Give it here. Proceeds to yank the tube off my head. Me? Hey, OL, puts tube back on the edge of the pool right where the last one was and comes over to me. You're a little thief and your mother ought to be ashamed of raising a liar. If I see you going near that tube again, I'll have you kicked out of the pool. Goes back to gossiping with the other stereotypical suburban moms. I obviously am terrified and feel awful cause I got yelled at and insulted by a stranger. I don't remember the rest of the day, other than it was pretty miserable after that. The injustice of the whole thing, especially that the other kid who took the tube got off with the whole thing. He often wasn't very nice to me. Still makes me grit my teeth. I am now a full-grown adult TL. Dr. Karen called 7-year-old me a thief and a liar at a public pool because I was the closest punching bag when she lost track of a pool tube.
When I was at work, this older couple wanted me to carry a box all the way to the front for them just because they didn't want to put it in their cart because it wouldn't fit. When I was trying to tell them that all they had to do was slide it underneath, they all of a sudden didn't want it. So, trying to be nice, I told them that I would take it to the front for them, went up near the front later on and they didn't even pick up their item. Some woman pumping gas at a gas station accused me of cutting in line at the air pump station because she didn't see me waiting before another guy pulled up. That was the first time I ever called somebody lady in that sardonic tone and I both loved and hated it. Worked at Home Depot one summer during school. Lady comes in with a friend and asks me for a BBQ part. I walk them to the aisle, pull a universal part off the shelf and tell them it'll work. They look at me like I'm a moron and say, well, we want this specific brand of part. I tell them, sorry, we don't stock that brand at all. This is the part I have. It's a universal and will work. They launch into a tirade about how Walmart a whole 4 blocks away carries it and therefore she should be able to buy it here. This went back and forth for several minutes before they stormed off yelling about how unhelpful I was. Assistant manager was in earshot the whole time and just walks over to me and says, what a bitch.
I used to work at a coffee shop and this one male Karen gets pissed that we don't have the small individual sized cartons of white milk. Like, raging. My co-worker offered to give him some milk in a cup, but this just wouldn't do. You see, he continued shouting and hollering about the principle of the matter.
I used to own a photography store, sold cameras and did pictures for passports etc. We opened at 1 PM on Mondays. But I happened to be at the store on Monday morning because I needed to get something. Was planning on just grabbing what I needed and go home when Karen tried to get in through the locked door. Door had a sign on it that said we were closed, and a sign with our opening hours. I didn't turn on any of the lights so it was also very dark inside. Karen started banging on the door. I was just about to leave, so I went outside to tell her we were closed. Karen didn't take it well and immediately demanded to speak to the manager. I said that I'm the owner. She then proceeded to shout and curse. So much so that the manager of the supermarket across the street came out to help me. She then tried to make the supermarket manager force me to open my store almost 4 hours earlier. Didn't work. Never seen the woman again.
I worked at McDonald's during the time they switched to child's fries and discontinued the caramel dip in Happy Meals. Everyone was pretty cool with it, but one country club looking Karen came in with her daughter and ordered a nugget Happy Meal with 3 cups of caramel dip. Because Breelin likes to dip her nuggets in it, I apologized and let her know we discontinued to caramel dip, which resulted in an instant meltdown. Kid threw herself down on the floor in an absolute screaming tantrum, and Karen was screaming at me that we do have caramel dip and I'm obviously keeping it from her. Then the accusations of me, a 17-year-old, purposely trying to starve her daughter. Honestly, Kid Colder benefited from starving a bitch. I've ruined her day. She's a regular customer but she's never coming back. Where's my manager? Typical Karen stuff. Manager eventually came out and just grabbed a sundae cup and filled it with a couple pumps of caramel. And Karen gave me a smug look and flipped me off.
During the 2009 recession period, I worked at Best Buy while I was between real jobs. At the time, the website and the retail stores were run by separate business entities, so it was often that store and web prices differed. But the store policy was to always match. One night a couple comes in. Karen asks for a 500mb Seagate hard drive. I asked, "Did you mean gigabyte, Karen? I know what I want. Just show me where it's at me." "No problem. Hard drives are over here, Karen." What the hell? This drive was $50 cheaper online. Are you trying to rip me off me? Just a minute. Let me look it up. I find a Western Digital that is on sale. Looks like it is this drive that is on sale for $109. I don't remember the numbers now, Karen. Can't you read? The tag says $159. Yes. I can give you this drive for the $109. It matches the one online, Karen. Fine. Call your manager or whatever you have to do. We didn't need a manager for .com matches while doing the register stuff. Karen says to her husband, "This is probably going to take a while. They never know what they are doing." So we get a payment and Karen gives me a Visa. Now, out of habit, I ask for an ID. Karen, are you kidding me? You are not authorized to require an ID for a purchase. That is Visa's policy. I am going to have this store shut down for such a ridiculous requirement. Blah blah blah. While she prattled on, I finalized the transaction, put the drive in a bag, and handed it to her without looking at her. I did look at the husband, who had been silent the entire time. He slowly glanced down at the ground and followed her out. On the way out, she, of course, asked to talk to a manager. So 2 things about the situation. 1, she is correct. Visa, at least to the time, did not require ID checks. However, merchants were permitted to ask. I did give a thought to making a scene out of it, because 2, it was my last night. The managers on duty got a good laugh out of her.
My manager Karen sat me down for an hour after my shift had ended, preaching to me why it was my fault I was physically assaulted by a customer.
Thank you. Thanks for watching our videos. We work hard to make sure you keep coming back for the content we produce. And if you like this video, please feel free to subscribe our channel. We would love to hear your own stories in the comments section below.